Welcome to week 8. The two major arcana cards this week are the Hanged Man and the Death card. The Death card is probably one of the most commonly known and recognized cards in tarot, and it does actually come out in a lot for readings for me personally. Now, the Hanged Man, on the other hand, is not a card that I personally see pulled a lot in tarot. It is a recognizable card as well, but it's not one that I personally have come out a lot for people when I'm reading. So the Hanged Man is literally a picture of a man hanging upside down. So this card represents looking at something from a completely different perspective. Okay, this card has a lot of meanings. It can represent breaking free from restrictive habits and thoughts by having a new way of thinking, right? He's upside down, so it's a new perspective. It can also be about staying true to yourself, even when people think what you're doing looks weird or is weird, right? He's hanging upside down, but he's like, you know what? I'm doing me. This is what I need to do. It also means being okay with being uncomfortable, right? Like, look how he's hanging. But it is, the card means, like sometimes we're put in uncomfortable situations, but it's for our benefit. So you have to learn to be okay with that. It also can represent a moment of peace, either during or after like a hard time or trauma, because he is just being there. He is just hanging. He's not in pain. He's not suffering. It's just different, right? It's a different perspective. It's a different way of living, but he's still living and he's okay. It's almost like he's taking a break. Okay. It's a really big, highly speaks to the point of view changing. It also it's a good card when it pulls up for somebody, maybe it's time to stop and examine their own beliefs. Maybe it's time for you to really take a look at your actions and put your ego aside and really just pause and surrender. It's asking you to look at the whole bigger picture, gain new perspectives, and sometimes it can be about a delay when you're speaking about it being a pause, because you're upside down, but it doesn't have to be negative, right? It's like just hanging around, literally hanging around and being patient. Okay. So then you have the Death card. The Death card is not scary. The thing with death is that this card represents an ending that makes a transformation possible. This card to me is actually a positive card. Maybe a relationship needs to die so you can move on to the new one. Maybe a friendship needs to die so you can have more space for self-respect and love. Maybe a career needs to die so you can become an artist. Whatever, and maybe ego needs to die so you can become a true self-healer, okay? It represents an ending. So the big thing about the Death card is it represents an ending. It's some sort of death of yourself, okay? It has to do with ending of cycles, thought process, relationships, but with these endings, the point is that it's made so you can move on and you can evolve, okay? It represents, if somebody, what should I do next? And I pull this card and it's, okay, it's time for change. It's time for transformation. It's time for transition. It's time for something new. I would be asking them, what do you need to let die? That's part of the question, but also just in general, when the Death card comes up, it means that it's time for change. It's time for a new direction. It's time for a new beginning. It's time to let sleeping dogs lay. It's time to move on, okay? So the Hanged Man, again, it's about the change of your perspective and being able to open up and have a new way of thinking, where the Death card is allowing, instead of saying, okay, let me look at this different, let me be patient and have a new perspective, the Death card is saying it is time to move on. It is time to let that go. It is time for a new cycle. Okay, the Hanged Man says, just be free in the moment and surrender to time and, just be okay with delays and just let go and look at your own beliefs and, just hang tight and do some work. And the Death card says it's time to transition. The ship has sailed. The cycle has ended. The thought process needs to end. The relationship needs to end. It's time to move on. So one is speaking to pausing and surrendering and changing your point of view and you're learning from your experiences, where the Death card is saying, nope, it is dead. It is done. Let's have a new direction. Let's have a new beginning. And it's actually about transformation and transition. So that is week 8 major arcana, the Hanged Man and the Death card.